Thank you, Arena. Thanks, everybody who's joining in tonight. Appreciate your time. I'll speak briefly, then I'll listen in for a bit. I have to be at a City Council School Committee joint meeting, excuse me, at 7 o'clock at the high school. So I'll be checking out in a little bit. But just a couple of thoughts to get us started. Back in 2019, our Volunteer Clean Energy Advisory Committee brought to me and to my colleagues on the City Council the idea of a community choice aggregation. And you'll learn all about it here. Just quickly, I'll tell you, we did our research together with the CEAC members and council, and we all agreed by passing a resolution in June of 2020 to apply to the state to become a community aggregation community. There are about 170 cities and towns in Massachusetts. That's about half of the total number of cities and towns in the state who have done community choice aggregations already. The program has been allowable under state law for almost 20 years. So we had a fair amount of history to look at. And the goals of for us of the aggregation are: one, use the bulk buying power community-wide of all of us, you, me, everybody who pays the National Grid basic rate for their electricity at home, for their electric supply. Go out and bid that and get a bulk rate that is hopefully better for all of us and provides a higher percentage of clean renewable energy as part of our electric supply. So what you'll see when you go through the details is that when we finally got approved by the state, which took some time, we went out to bid just about a month ago and got a locked-in rate for 20 months. That for the first 3 months of it is going to be about 4.25 cents per kilowatt hour cheaper than what we're paying right now if we're on National Grid's basic rate. We have a locked-in rate for 20 months. National Grid gets a new rate about every 6 months, a new rate approved by the state. And so we'll be going through about 4 different National Grid rates while our locked-in rate stays the same. And one of the things we researched very carefully and deeply for many months before even applying for this was the history, because it's really important to all of us that the city's ratepayers, residents, small businesses, do as well or better on the rate as they would if they stayed in the basic rate. We can't guarantee that, but the history of the program shows that that's generally what happens. And so it's something that we all will pay attention to, and you as a resident or business owner who are in the current grid basic rate, you can just let this rate kick in, and it will save you money initially, and hopefully as you pay attention to it over the next couple of years, you'll see that it continues to. But if you see differently, you can at any time, you can opt out of this program without any penalty to you. So these are some of the details of it. And I'll stop there because after we, meaning the City Council, the CEAC, and I all agreed that the city should apply, we then hired Paul Gromer, Marlena Patton, and their team to kind of walk us through. They've done this work in many communities around the state. And so they are our consultant experts who've worked with us for the last few years and can share with you folks some of the greater detail. Marlena, I've got Marlena's official job title, although she does a lot of work, but she is the Vice President of Communications and Program Management at Mass Power Choice. So I'm going to turn it to Marlena and listen in for as long as I can. And again, I want to thank everybody who's here. Please, as a follow-up to tonight, don't hesitate to reach out to us in my office or to Marlena and the whole team for Mass Power Choice. Thanks, everyone. Marlena?
Great, thanks, Mayor. That was a great intro and a good history of the program. So as Mayor Cahill said, Paul and I are here from Mass Power Choice. We're the consulting team that's been hired by the city to support the program. And that means not only are we providing support behind the scenes, helping the city get the program up and running, but also we're available to answer questions and as a resource for the community. So there's customer support, and we're the ones providing that. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and walk you through a slide presentation that will hopefully make this program make some sense, and then we can take some questions afterwards. So let me share my screen now.
And let me just jump in with another piece of logistics here. If you'd like to see closed captioning so you can read along in real time, you should see the show captions button at the bottom of your menu.
Great, thank you, Arena. All right, so hopefully everybody sees the cover slide. So an intro to Beverly Community Electric. We start here on the cover to say it's an electricity program from the city for residents and businesses. So I like to clarify this program is not from my company. This is a public service from the city for the community. So what kind of program is it? It's an electricity aggregation program. And if that leaves you as confused as the dog on this slide looks, the way to think about it, it's a form of group electricity purchasing for residents and businesses in Beverly. And it's a city alternative to all the marketing that we're all getting. And I say we because I also happen to be a Beverly resident, that we're all getting from private electricity supply companies. It's a city alternative to that that's transparent. So why participate? What's in it for you? Well, there's a few key benefits as an electricity customer. A big one is new electricity choices. So through the program, there are 3 new choices for the supply part of your electric bill. And we'll go into what that means in a little more detail in a few slides, but 3 new choices. And another big one, stable and consistent pricing. So we're probably all, or at least I am, still reeling from what happened 2 winters ago when National Grid's price spiked to record highs. And all of us suffered through that winter trying to pay our electric bills. When you have a program like Beverly Community Electric, as the mayor said, we've got long-term fixed prices. So we're not going to see seasonal price spikes like we saw that winter. It's one of the big benefits of the program. And then another benefit is more of your electricity will come from renewable sources. At the same time, you're getting a price that's lower than National Grid's current residential price. Now, I have to offer the caveat that we can't guarantee future savings. National Grid's price is bouncing around all the time. It changes every 6 months or less. And Beverly signed a long-term fixed price contract. We don't know what those future National Grid prices will be. We feel pretty good that the program is going to be competitive, and we know right now it's definitely cheaper. Now, one thing I like to get out of the way out front, because this can be confusing, is that Beverly Community Electric is not a replacement for National Grid. National Grid owns the poles and the wires in Beverly, and they are our electric utility no matter what. We actually don't have a choice in that. If we live in Beverly, National Grid is our utility, and they're responsible for delivering our electricity and handling our billing. But what we can choose is what's called our electricity supplier. That's the company that goes out and buys electricity and puts it on the grid for us. And it can help to understand kind of the 2 parts, electricity and delivery and supply. So this slide just goes into it in a little more detail. In Massachusetts in general, you don't have a choice in who delivers your electricity. The utilities have geographic monopolies. So if you live in Beverly, it's National Grid. If you live somewhere else, it might be Eversource. And what's more, National Grid makes its profit off the delivery part of your bill. The other part of your bill, the supply part of your bill, is where you're buying the electricity itself. And that's where you do have choice. And because you have choice, you can have a little control over the price you pay and over the renewable energy content of the electricity that you're buying. And it can help to know then there are 3 ways actually to buy that electricity supply in Massachusetts. So we're still talking about the supply. The first is if your utility buys it for you, and that's called basic service. So in that case, National Grid is actually providing you with 2 services. They're delivering your electricity, which we know they're always going to do, and also they're going to go out and buy it for you. So that's what we have when we first open our electric account. It's kind of the default. It's always there and available for us. So that's called basic service. The second option is you take up one of those offers that we're getting in the mail or over the phone, and you sign a private contract with an electricity supply company. In that case, National Grid is still your electric utility, but the supply charge on your bill is calculated using the price that you have through that private contract. And then the third option is the City of Beverly signs a contract with an electricity supplier that you get to benefit from. So you haven't signed the contract yourself. Instead, the city signed it, and you get the benefit of the city's pricing. So that's what electricity aggregation is. It's the city signing that contract. You're benefiting by getting the city's price for the supply part of your bill. Beverly Community Electric is one of these programs, and additionally, it's what's called a green municipal electricity aggregation, which means Beverly's going to buy more electricity from renewable sources as part of the program. And increasingly, we're seeing that communities in the state are doing this. They're using these programs as a way to buy more electricity from renewable sources. So this slide is really a picture of what I was just talking about. If pictures work for you, they work for me. So I like to throw a picture in. So before the program begins, if you have basic service, meaning you have not signed a private electricity supply contract, you kind of have that default. As I said, National Grid is providing you with two services, delivering and also supplying your electricity. And you'll see on the left side of this picture, National Grid is providing those services, and then the customers over on the right in the green. With Beverly Community Electric in place, it's really the same diagram, but on the left side, instead of having National Grid providing two services, National Grid is just providing the delivery part of that picture, and a different company is providing the supply part. But you see that relationship between National Grid and the customer over on the right is uninterrupted. And that's an important thing to note, that your relationship with National Grid remains intact. They're still responsible for delivering electricity with no interruption. And so they still do that with the program in place. It's just that another company, specifically a company called First Point Power, which is who the city signed a contract with, they're the ones that go out, they'll buy electricity and make sure it's put on the grid on your behalf. And because of that contract, that's how you're going to be able to determine the price and renewable energy content of the offerings in the program. So let's talk about those program offerings. I mentioned early on that the program has choices in it. There are actually three. On the far left, we have Beverly Standard. That's what's known as the default, meaning the city had to choose one of these three options to be the one you get if you don't choose one of the others. So that's Beverly Standard. And with that, you're automatically getting an additional 10% of your electricity from renewable sources. So what do I mean an additional 10%? Well, state law requires all electricity that's sold in the state to include a minimum amount from renewable sources. And we don't have a choice in that. So National Grid gives you that minimum. Anybody that you get electricity from has to give you that minimum. Beverly is chosen to buy an additional 10% from renewable sources above that minimum for Beverly Standard. The price there is the price that National Grid would use to calculate the supply services part of your bill. So 13.919 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you look over on the far right, you'll see the National Grid price for basic service. That's the default price. It's significantly higher, 18.213 cents a kilowatt hour. So that default, that Beverly Standard, that's the thing you get in the program if you don't do anything else. You don't choose anything else. But there's two other options, and they're available by request. The first is Beverly Clean, and with that one, you get 100% of your electricity from renewable sources. And that's a little bit more because of that. The price is a little bit higher, but it's still lower than National Grid's basic service price. And then the third option in the program is Beverly Basic. Through that one, you're getting just the minimum amount of renewable energy required by law, same as National Grid. You're just getting a Beverly price for it. So that's the least expensive option in the program. National Grid's price, as we've said before, is changing every 6 months or less, so it's always moving around. And this 18.213 price is fixed through July 31st. It'll change next on August 1st, and we don't yet know what that new price is going to be. Beverly's prices are fixed, and unlike that, fixed for 20 months until January 2026. So let's take a look now at what it looks like on your bill. What are you going to see? Are you going to see a lot of change? And the answer is no, you're not. You're only going to see 2 changes on your bill. You're going to look at the supply services part of your bill, which is not the first part of your bill. It's usually on the second page of your bill. You're going to see a change in your electric supplier. You're going to see Beverly Community Electric, First Point Power. And then you'll see a change in the price that's used to calculate the supply services charge, which is that smaller yellow box there, the 0.13919. Otherwise, that's it. You're not going to see any changes. It's a pretty invisible program once it's up and running. As I said before, when we were looking at the aggregation diagram, your relationship with for electricity remains with National Grid, and it's uninterrupted. So they're going to continue to deliver your electricity. You're still going to call them if the power goes out. They're still sending your bill, and you're continuing to pay them. And this is the only electric bill you're going to get as part of the program. You're not going to get a second bill. And importantly, if you're eligible for any discounts from National Grid, like a low income discount, you're going to continue to receive that discount with no change. Now, how do you participate? The good news is it's pretty easy for most people. And that's because if you have National Grid's basic service, meaning you haven't signed a private contract with an electricity supplier, you're eligible for automatic enrollment. That's the state law. That's not a decision Beverly made. It's not a choice Beverly had. And that's how all the programs in the state that are like this work. So if you do nothing, you're going to automatically get that lower price. You're going to get a formal notification in the mail, which they've started landing. Look for the city seal. If you get something that doesn't have the city seal, it's not the formal notification. So you get this notification in the mail before you're enrolled, and it has all this price information that I just went through. But even though there's an automatic enrollment model, participation isn't required. You are free to opt out of the program before being automatically enrolled if it doesn't look like it's right for you, or you can try the program and opt out at any time in the future. There's no penalty or fee for opting out of Beverly Community Electric, and that's one way that it's different from a lot of the private electricity supply contracts that are out there, where in order to get the lower price, you have to agree to be enrolled with them for a minimum amount of time or pay an early termination fee. There's no such fee through Beverly Community Electric. Now, some commonly asked questions. What if I've signed a contract with an electricity supplier already? That's a great question, and I haven't talked about that yet. The answer there is you're not going to be eligible for automatic enrollment, but you can join. Your contract will be honored. Beverly Community Electric doesn't even get your account information. There's no mechanism for automatically enrolling you. But if you want to participate, you are more than welcome to. You would just need to take a step to do it. And it's pretty straightforward. You can just go to the website or call customer support with your account information, and we can get you enrolled. But we would just encourage you to take a look at what your current contract is and whether you'll be charged an early termination fee if you do that. If you look at your contract and it looks like you need to stay in it for a little bit longer to avoid an early termination fee, or maybe you have a great price and you just want to finish that contract, you can do that. And then you can join Beverly Community Electric when that contract ends. You'll still get the program price. Now, what if you have solar panels or you participate in a community solar program and you're getting credits on your bill or you're getting an incentive payment? Again, no change there. Well, not again, no change there. Specifically, participating in the program does not change how those credits are calculated. So you can participate in the program, get a slightly lower price, and still get those credits or incentive payments calculated the same way they always have been, which means they go a little bit further. So again, no change if you have solar panels or you're participating in community solar. And then what if you have a low income discount or a fuel assistant, or you're participating in National Grid's budget plan? Again, no change. As I said before, if you have that low income discount, a lot of people have questions about that. You're still going to get that discount. That's a discount that's placed on your total bill after it's calculated. So you can participate in Beverly Community Electric, get a slightly lower price there, and then you get a low income discount on top of that. So where do you get more information? Well, as I mentioned, there are these mailings going out, official automatic enrollment notifications going out to anyone that has National Grid's basic service. So you will get that in the mail. If you don't have National Grid's basic service, you're not going to get that, but you can go to beverlycommunityelectric.com for a lot of information, or you can call customer support or send an email to customer support. And it's my colleagues that will be answering the phone and helping you out, and we'd be delighted to. So I'll stop sharing now and be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Marlena. So again, we can take questions in the Q&A box, or if you'd like to chat with us directly, you're welcome to raise your hand. So maybe everybody gets it. Marlena, you did a great job.
We'll give them a minute to digest it. It's a lot of little details.
It is.
So we have a question on when does the program begin?
Oh, great point. I didn't actually cover that. So thank you for asking that. So the program will launch in May. And so what that means is if you participate, you would get enrolled with your May meter read, and you would first see the program price on your June bill. You always see it at the end of the billing cycle.
And if you think of a question later, we'll just share that there's a lot of information on the program website, which we can plunk into the chat. And maybe specifically, we can link to the FAQ webpage on the website, which goes into more details. If you end up with questions about your bill, you want to read your specific situation, how to understand what the program means for you, you can navigate the FAQs, or like Marlena said, call, email, you can reach out to us as well.
So we have another question here. How do we opt to 100% renewable?
That's a great choice. You can do that either online or by calling customer support. If you go online, actually, I can
I'll
share
pull it up.
my. Oh, you'll pull it up. Okay, I was gonna say
Sure.
I can share my screen. Yeah, you can pull it up.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go online, let's see. There you go. Up at the very top in the upper right corner, change your option. So just click on that. It takes you to a form where you put in your National Grid account information and click submit. It's really as easy as that. And if that's not your thing, or you're uncomfortable with that, or you can't quite navigate your bill, just give us a call and we'd be happy to take your information over the phone.
We have another one here. What is the historical basis for long-term pricing projections?
I would say big picture, typically communities do save money on average. The way to think about it is over the course of the whole supply contract, rather than trying to save money against every National Grid 6-month period. Typically communities do save a little bit. It's never enough to go off and buy an island in the Bahamas, but it's something. I have to always accompany that with savings can't be guaranteed, because we of course don't know National Grid's future prices, but typically across the state, communities are finding that these programs are saving folks. Certainly in the default and the basic options, when you opt up to 100% renewable, that's just a little bit more expensive. So there's a little bit more of a risk there that you wouldn't always have a lower price. But generally overall, folks are saving a little bit.
I'll ask a question, Marlena. This was something that was really interesting to us as we were trying to figure out, how to structure the program. But can you talk a little bit about the impact of the aggregation on our clean energy goals? What's the equivalent of all of the new electricity that comes from renewable sources mean in the big picture?
Oh, great. And actually, that's a good question, Paul. Would you like to talk about that? Paul knows this stuff backwards and forwards.
Sure, absolutely. So in Beverly's case, the amount of additional renewable electricity in the standard product is equivalent to the amount that would be produced by an 8 megawatt solar plant, which is one of those great big, actually, it's a couple of the giant solar fields you see around the state. So that's the amount that on an annual basis, additional amount that the city would purchase. And then, if we look at all of these programs all together, it's more on, it's like 10 times that scale. So it's more like, 800 megawatts of additional renewable electricity, not just 8, as in Beverly. So it's a significant amount of additional electricity that these programs are demanding or requiring to be generated through their purchases.
Thank you, Paul. And for reference for our Beverly residents, we have a 5 megawatt solar array over the former landfill by the Cycles 128 Motorcycle Museum, and about a 4.4 megawatt system that was just developed in 2022. So this program alone is having a huge impact on greening up our electricity.
And I have 2 more questions here on the panel. The first one is a little bit more background on municipal aggregation itself. How long have these programs been around?
Oh gosh, going on 20 years. Paul, what was the year they started?
Yeah, so they've been authorized by state law since 1998, and the first one started about 20 years ago.
And then the second one I have here is, if I opt out and stay with National Grid, is there an opportunity to sign up with this program later?
That's a great question. So if you opt out and you want to come back, you can re-enroll, but with a caveat, and that is that Beverly's electricity supplier has the option to charge a market price if prices have moved higher. It's expensive for them or any electricity supplier starting any of these programs, when customers bounce back and forth. So there's always a caveat in the contract that says they have the option to charge a higher price if you do that, and that's just to discourage people from bouncing back and forth. And you would just need to check at the time that you want to re-enroll to see if that's the case.
Just another question here about municipal aggregation more generally, and I believe the answer was 170 municipalities, but how many municipalities are involved in Massachusetts? Is that correct?
Yep, it's 170 have been approved. They're not all launched. Beverly's one of those 170, so they're all right up at the cusp of launching some of the more recent ones, but it's 170 have been approved. Yeah.
And the city of Salem has had their program since what, 2016, 2017?
Yeah, a long time now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, this is your time. So folks who are still on the line with us, if there's anything that you want to learn or know about, feel free to add it back into the Q&A or unmute. And apart from that, we might just wrap up this part of the presentation and end the recording. I think we're going to stick around in case other people decide to join late, because we originally budgeted a healthy hour and a half for the presentation. So we got a couple more questions trickling in, and then maybe we'll wrap and let you move on with your evening.
All right, I see here another question. Will the program be providing National Grid pricing at the 20-month mark?
So the idea is that Beverly will go out to bid near the end of this contract and sign another long-term contract. So assuming the city does that, everybody that's participating would get notification by mail of a new long-term price, and you just automatically roll into that new long-term price, whatever it is. If the city decides, though, that the program is not serving the city, the city can choose not to sign another contract at the end of this one. And in that case, everybody that's in the program would be returned to National Grid's basic service price. And again, you get a notification in the mail if that happens, but that's not the city's intention. The intention is for the program to be up and running and to have another long-term contract in place after this one.
And we have another one here. How will we be able to access National Grid pricing going forward?
So it's actually a regulatory requirement that National Grid's current basic service price always has to be on the program website. So if you go to the options and prices page and scroll down, you're always going to be able to see current National Grid pricing. You can also always go to the National Grid website, but navigating that is its own effort. So it's always going to be here for you.
So if you want to leave, again, this is the home page of the website. There's an opt-out button in the upper right corner, and you fill out a form similar to the one to change your option to select opt-out.
And then if I could also just mention, in addition to the National Grid current 6-month pricing being on the pricing page, there's also a pricing calculator on the website that provides a comparison with National Grid's most recent 12-month average, which can be a very useful thing given how frequently National Grid prices change. So you can both see the current 6-month price and also the most recent historical 12-month average on the site as a comparison.
So another question we have here is there a concern that wind power suppliers are pulling out of projects due to costs? Question if wind supply and wind projects in Massachusetts have something to do with renewable energy in these programs.
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer that one, and it's a very good question, and it's on a lot of people's minds. So the answer is that as far as the program is concerned, there won't be an impact because the city has a contract with an electricity supplier. They're obligated to provide a certain amount of renewable electricity. And usually the way they meet that, or typically, is they've already bought it now. So they're prepared to meet their obligations to the city. It's also true, though, that if those wind projects don't go forward or don't go forward on schedule, that's a challenge for the state in meeting its overall renewable energy goals. But as far as the city is concerned and this program is concerned, your electricity supply is locked in and you'll get the renewable energy that's been promised.
Paul, could you go into a little bit more context on how these programs are helping to drive more development?
Sure, absolutely. So what the programs do is they create an increased demand for renewable electricity. So if there were no programs at all, there's a certain amount of demand for renewable electricity, and that's actually set by a state law. There's a certain amount that has to be in electricity of renewables. It has to be part of your electricity no matter what, as Marlena was discussing before. And that requirement encourages renewable energy developers to build projects to supply that demand, to meet that demand. When communities like Beverly decide they want extra, what that does is it increases the demand, which leads to the development of new projects over time in order to supply that demand. It's similar to the way other things work in the marketplace, where when people start to buy smartphones, and a lot of people are buying them, suddenly you get more smartphone manufacturing in order to meet that demand. Renewable electricity works the same way. And what the city is doing is by buying more, you're creating a demand for more, which leads to more supply.
And we're hosts from the Sustainability Office, so this is very exciting to us. And I know it's very technical, but you're all still with us. If you're still here, maybe you're interested in getting the nerdy information as well. So thanks, Paul.
And I have another question related to another supplier outside of municipal aggregation. So my contract with another supplier ends in November 2024. Can I opt into Beverly's program then? Would the 20-month be shortened by 6 months effectively?
Yes and yes. So the 20-month is fixed from the program launch until January 2026. So the contract is until January 2026. You can join the contract midway at the end of your current contract, but that does not mean you would get 20 months from that date. You would still have this price through January 2026. So everybody in the program, regardless of when they join, gets the same price until January 2026.
Then we have another question here related to pricing. Is National Grid apt to increase their delivery pricing to offset those that are switching to the alternate supplier?
No, and interestingly, National Grid is they're completely agnostic whether you participate in a program like this or switch to a third-party supplier, because they don't make a profit on that part of their bill. The supply charge part of your bill, the supply services part of your bill, which is the part of the bill that this program impacts, is when you have basic service, that's just a cost that's passed along straight to you with no profit to National Grid. So they're completely neutral whether or not they're your supplier or you choose another supplier. They make their profit on the delivery services part of the bill.
Here we go. Another question here. Are the alternate suppliers subject to state oversight on pricing?
So the prices that are, you mean the prices that are bid into the program, those are bid through a competitive bidding process. So unlike where National Grid goes out to bid, which is also competitive, but then they have to submit them to the DPU, these prices are not submitted to the DPU, but it is a competitive bidding process, and the price is chosen based on that competition.
And then a follow-up from the previous question, then why doesn't National Grid offer lower supply pricing then?
Because National Grid doesn't have the flexibility that Beverly does when it goes out to bid. So National Grid's required by law to go out to bid on a certain schedule, and also they have to sign contracts of a certain length. Beverly had a little more flexibility. It chose the bid date, and also it chose the duration of the contract that provided the most competitive pricing for the community. And so that allows it to play a little bit more with the options available and come in at a lower price.
And I'll just add to that, which also may be part of the question is, National Grid charges for its basic service their cost for purchasing the electricity. So they just pass through their cost, whatever it is. They have no reason to charge less because they would lose money if they did that. So they just pass through their costs. And for the reasons that Marlena explained, communities like Beverly are able to get a better price and so can offer electricity for a lower cost. But National Grid has no incentive to charge less and no ability to charge more. They just pass through whatever it is they pay.
Thanks, Paul.
I think you had some of this on your slides as well, Marlena, but I was going to pull up the page in the manual that kind of shows the differences between the Beverly Community Electric program terms and basic service terms and any other supplier that you might see. I know I personally get a lot of snail mail from companies that are trying to pitch clean, renewable electricity, and they don't offer these same kinds of protections where they might offer an introductory rate that seems to be lower than National Grid's basic service, but then you read many paragraphs of fine print and it turns out that they can change the rate at any time after your introductory rate. They don't have to let you know, and usually the prices are much higher. So, beware of other electricity suppliers. They're not all evil. There's some good programs out there, but with this program, you do have that extra level of consumer protection. Okay, folks. Thank you for the folks asking lots of questions. And I think if we don't have anything else, we might wrap and